Good evening, dear listener. As you settle into your favorite chair or nestle under your softest blanket, take a deep, calming breath, maybe sip a little warm tea, feel the gentle weight of your pillow supporting your head, and let the quiet hush of the night softly envelop you. Tonight, I invite you to relax completely, to unwind from the busyness of the day, and to prepare your mind for a journey into a world that's both curious and strangely familiar. Now imagine a realm where the ancient stones of a grand palace shimmer with a strange new glow, one not lit by the sun or torches, but by tiny flickering lights that dance and flicker like fireflies caught in a breeze. In this world, the mighty Pharaoh's gaze would fall not upon scrolls or pyramids, but on a glowing screen that holds 1,000 fleeting images, quick, shimmering snippets that seem to whisper stories, jokes, and dances in a language only the modern mind can understand. Picture this: a scepter in one hand, yet in the other, a device that buzzes and hums, an enchanted mirror that captures the world's secrets in moments, turning them into fleeting sparks of entertainment. The Pharaoh, once a deity commanding respect and awe, now peering with curiosity or perhaps bemusement at this strange spectacle, where time slips away as easily as a notification ping in the silent night. And as your eyes grow heavier, you'll soon wake, not in your familiar room, but in a place where shadows whisper and the air hums with the pulse of 1,000 tiny worlds. Here, your role will be far stranger than anything you've known before. But for now, rest easy and let the night carry you gently toward that mysterious dawn. You open your eyes and immediately your senses are assaulted by a tapestry of textures, sounds, and smells that feel utterly unfamiliar, yet somehow oddly compelling. The first thing you notice is the roughness of the bed beneath you, woven reeds and coarse linen sheets that scratch at your skin, releasing a faint scent of dust and dampness. The air is thick with a mixture of odors. The smoky tang of burning wood mingles with the sharp sting of herbs long dried, their fragrance clinging to the walls and filling your nostrils with each breath. Somewhere nearby, a faint aroma of spoiled meat wafts through the air, making your stomach tighten in protest. The ground beneath your feet is cold and uneven, a patchwork of cracked clay tiles that shift with every step, and your clothes, stiff linen, slightly damp from the night, brush against your skin, rough and unyielding, like a second skin of woven bark. As your senses adjust, you begin to pick up the sounds that drift through the space, the distant clang of metal on metal, perhaps a blacksmith hammering out a new piece of iron, the low, guttural calls of merchants bargaining in the marketplace, the occasional distant cry of a child playing or a woman calling out to her neighbor. Outside, you can hear the faint ringing of bells from the village square, a steady reminder that life here moves to its own slow, relentless rhythm. Somewhere, a sickly moan or cough escapes from a nearby hut, hinting at the presence of illness and suffering, a reminder that health is a fragile thing, even in these ancient times. Your skin prickles as you breathe in deeply, catching the scent of sweat and smoke, mingled with the faint aroma of burning incense or herbs used for healing or magic. The taste on your tongue is a dull bitterness, perhaps from the water you drank last night, murky and tepid, or the stale bread you had for breakfast, hard and crumbly, but filling enough to keep hunger at bay. Your fingers brush against a rough, cold surface, the wall perhaps, and you realize how coarse and unrefined everything around you is, a stark contrast to the sleek, polished surfaces of modern life. In this moment, you can't help but feel a flicker of surprise. Your idea of a bad morning used to be misplacing your phone or spilling coffee on your shirt. Here, It's realizing your mask smells worse than the patients you're supposed to help, and the discomfort of the linen wrapping sticking to your skin while the faint glow of sunlight filters through a small, grated opening, casting shadows that dance lazily across the room. The universe seems to have turned the dial way past the familiar into a realm where comfort is a distant memory, replaced by the raw, unfiltered essence of life. Now, with a slow, deliberate motion, you reach out and grasp the rough fabric of your tunic, pulling it over your head and slipping your arms into the stiff, woven sleeves. You stand carefully, feeling the cold bite of the stone floor beneath your bare feet, and take a moment to gather yourself. Perhaps you need to fetch water or find a cloth to wipe the sweat from your brow. Maybe it's time to step outside and face the world beyond these walls. As you move, your eyes are drawn to the room's details, simple yet filled with stories. A cracked pottery jar, a bundle of dried herbs hanging from a beam, a carved figurine resting on a shelf. You notice the sparse furnishings, wooden stools, a table scarred by age, a faded tapestry depicting a scene of gods and kings, reminders of a civilization rooted in tradition, yet alive with whispers of change. Outside, the village stirs. Women in flowing robes and men in tunics, their faces marked by the sun and toil, go about their daily routines. Children dart past, laughter spilling from their lips like water over stones, while elders sit in shaded courtyards, eyes heavy but watchful. Some notice your presence, the way your unfamiliar attire or strange demeanor catches their eye, and their expressions shift between curiosity and caution, a silent acknowledgement that you are somehow different, yet part of this fabric. They regard you with a mixture of respect and wariness, as if you carry secrets from a world beyond their understanding. Their gazes linger, and you can feel the weight of history pressing into your shoulders, a silent reminder that this moment is just a fragment of a much larger story. And as you take in this scene, it becomes clear you are not simply waking up in a different place. No, this is a world where time has folded back upon itself, where the familiar has become strange, and the strange somehow feels like home. To truly understand where you've just woken up, we need to step back and see the vast, intricate tapestry that shaped this life, an endless web of history, culture, and myth that stretches far beyond the walls of this humble village. But for now, rest assured, your journey into the depths of this ancient world has only just begun. You find yourself living in a time where the world is a mosaic of towering stone structures, winding dirt roads, and bustling marketplaces that seem to hum with life from dawn till dusk. The era you've woken up in is the height of the New Kingdom of Egypt, probably somewhere around 1500 BCE, when the Pharaoh's rule stretched across a land of deserts and fertile riverbanks, a civilization proud and deeply rooted in tradition. It's a time when the Nile is both a gift and a challenge, its annual flooding shaping the rhythm of life, and the grand temples and tombs whisper stories of gods, kings, and the eternal quest for immortality. Your world is one of pyramids rising like silent giants into the sky, their edges sharp against the horizon, and bustling towns where artisans hammer away at jewelry, scribes carve hieroglyphs into limestone, and farmers tend to their crops, all under the watchful eyes of deities and the ever-present authority of the Pharaoh. Imagine walking through this society where the social structure is as layered as the Nile Delta itself. At the top sit the nobles and priests, wrapped in fine linens and adorned with gold, wielding influence both spiritual and political. They are the keepers of knowledge, the ones who interpret the will of the gods and oversee the grand rituals that keep the universe in balance. Below them, the scribes, skilled and revered for their mastery of hieroglyphs, are the intellectual elite, translating the divine into words that sustain the empire's memory. Then come the artisans and merchants, crafting jewelry, pottery, and textiles whose vibrant markets are as lively as a festival filled with the sounds of bargaining, laughter, and the clatter of tools. And beneath all of these, the common folk, farmers, labourers, and servants living day to day, their lives dictated by the seasons, the river, and the whims of the ruling class. The divide between the rich and the poor is stark, almost as if the wealth of the upper classes is stored in the gleaming gold of their jewelry or the fine linen of their robes, while the lower classes scrape by in homes made of sun-baked mud bricks and rough cloth. Power is concentrated in the hands of the Pharaoh, believed to be a divine incarnation, a living god whose word is law. He commands armies, decrees laws, and shapes the destiny of Egypt. Yet, in truth, his authority is as fragile as the papyrus scrolls that record his decrees, dependent on the support of priests, noble families, and the ever-watchful army. The common people's fate often hinges on luck, superstition, or the favor of the gods, an unpredictable force that can turn life upside down in a single breath. As you step outside, the environment expands into a landscape of contrasts. The city's streets are a chaotic symphony, vendors shouting over each other, camels groaning under their loads, children darting between legs, and the smell of roasted chickpeas mingling with the scent of goat dung and incense. The marketplace is a riot of colours, bright dyes on linen, gleaming copper vessels, and scarlet banners fluttering in the breeze, like a modern-day carnival with more donkeys than people. The architecture is a mix of grandeur and practicality, massive stone temples with towering columns carved with intricate scenes, narrow alleys lined with sun-bleached houses, and open courtyards where priests perform rituals in the blazing sun. Everywhere, life pulses with an unrelenting rhythm, farmers rising at dawn with the crowing of roosters, artisans working long hours in their workshops, and priests preparing for ceremonies that last all day and into the night. The daily routine here is a blend of the sacred and the mundane. People wake when the first light hits the horizon, perhaps to the clang of a temple bell or the crow of a village rooster. They start their work early, whether it's tending crops along the riverbanks, grinding grain in bustling mills, or making offerings to the gods. Taking a bath was almost a suspicious act, like announcing to your neighbors that you were planning something shady, so most washed their faces quickly at dawn or before meals, using water drawn from the Nile or wells, sometimes infused with herbs or ashes to mask the smell. And meals, well, they're simple but hearty: flatbread, fresh figs, and sometimes fish caught from the river, though the water often tasted of mud and algae, making every sip of wine seem like a small luxury. Your idea of a bad morning used to be forgetting your phone charger or spilling coffee on your shirt. Here, it's waking up to a world where the sun is hot enough to bake clay, where your clothes are rougher than sandpaper, and where a simple walk outside could mean crossing paths with a man who believes his scarab amulet is the key to eternal life, an idea that makes your modern superstitions seem downright mundane. The streets are noisy and lively, a constant hum of trade, conversation, and the occasional squabble over livestock. If you're lucky, you might spot a procession of priests in linen robes carrying images of Osiris or Hathor, their chants echoing through the air like a lullaby for the gods. In this society, your Wi-Fi frustrations are nothing compared to trying to light damp wood in the rain, an art that every craftsman here has mastered, often with a patience that would make your modern stress seem trivial. The political and cultural landscape is as layered as the Nile's annual floods. Egypt is a kingdom ruled by the divine Pharaoh, an absolute monarch whose authority is rooted in the gods, believed to be the earthly embodiment of Horus or Osiris. The land is organized into a complex hierarchy where every city, town and village is part of a vast, interconnected system governed by decrees from the palace and the priesthood. Wars and invasions are common. Egypt's armies are mighty, but often embroiled in conflicts with neighboring peoples or trying to expand their borders. Epidemics strike from time to time, wiping out villages and leaving entire regions in mourning, yet life endures. Religion permeates everything: daily prayers, elaborate funerary rites, and superstitions that influence decisions from planting crops to choosing a marriage partner. Superstition is a second language here. Some believe carrying a scarab beetle amulet warded off evil, while others swear that whispering prayers to the Nile spirits can protect them from floods or droughts. And then there are the quirks, those little details that make this world both fascinating and oddly comforting. Like the fact that some believed carrying a handful of onions in your pocket could ward off the plague, organic medicine, they called it, or that sniffing flowers soaked in vinegar was a safer way to stay healthy than keeping your distance from someone coughing up their lungs. Masks, but make it medieval, cloth coverings that hid the mouth and nose, often decorated with symbols or feathers, as if to ward off evil spirits or bad luck. All of this, woven together with a sense of purpose and a touch of humor, creates a society that's as intricate as a finely woven tapestry, each thread holding a story, a superstition, or a sacred duty. Now that you know where you've landed, surrounded by temples, markets, and the whispers of history, let's zoom in on the everyday life of the people here. Because beneath the grandeur of the Pharaoh's court, beyond the rituals and the hieroglyphs, lie the simple acts of living, loving, and surviving. And that's where your story truly begins. The air is thick with the scent of smoke from the nearby hearth, mingled with faint hints of dampness from the clay floors and the lingering must of yesterday's chores. You stretch your limbs, feeling the stiffness that comes from a night spent on a mat woven from reeds, firm, rough, and unyielding, almost as if it's trying to remind you of your place in the world. Your first task is simple: to wash your face and hands, a ritual that, despite its simplicity, holds its own importance. You dip your hands into a basin of cold water, wooden perhaps, or a simple clay jar filled with the river's chill, and splash it onto your cheeks, feeling the shock of icy droplets against your skin. The water smells faintly of mud and algae, a reminder that cleanliness here is more about function than fashion. You wipe your face with a coarse cloth, rougher than any towel you've known, its fibers scratching your skin as you try to clear away the sleep and dirt. There's no soap or scented lotion, just water and maybe a handful of herbs or aromatic leaves tossed in to mask the faint, earthy odor of sweat and smoke. In this era, bathing is a suspicious act, almost like announcing to your neighbors that you're planning something clandestine. So, you keep it quick, splash some water, and hope the scent doesn't offend the nose of the next person passing by. As you move to your small, cluttered space, your home reveals itself in its simplicity. The walls are darkened by smoke, the wooden beams rough and splintered from years of use, while clay jars and pottery vases sit on shelves or the floor, filled with water, herbs, or dried grains. The furniture is sparse, perhaps a low stool, a simple wooden table scarred by years of use, and a woven mat or two, frayed at the edges. The faint aroma of burnt wood lingers, mixed with the smell of damp linen and the faint, musty scent of stored grains. The crackling of a nearby fire provides a gentle ambient hum, punctuated by occasional pops from burning sticks or the muffled sounds of someone grinding grain. The air is warm, but not oppressive. It's the kind of warmth that wraps around you like an old blanket, familiar yet dull compared to the crisp scent of modern air conditioning. Now let's talk about what you're wearing. Your everyday clothes are coarse, heavy fabrics, probably linen or wool, that feel like hugging a hedgehog. The tunic drapes loosely over your body, its fibers rough against your skin, and the belt around your waist is a simple strip of leather, unadorned. Your shoes? Made of stiff, worn leather, unforgiving and scratchy, more suited for a trek across the Nile's banks than a stroll through a city park. You might find yourself scratching an itch or rubbing your arms to combat the chill, your body's natural reaction to clothing that feels like a second, itchy skin. Comparing this to your modern wardrobe, which might include a fuzzy sweater or soft sneakers, it's almost amusing how primitive comfort can be. Here, the idea of being comfortable is secondary to practicality, clothing that keeps the dust out, the sun off, and the cold at bay. Your breakfast awaits, a humble affair, but one that sustains you through the day's chores. A piece of flatbread, perhaps, its surface cracked and crumbly, served with a slice of aged cheese or a handful of dried figs. The bread is dense, with a flavor that's earthy and a bit sour, like biting into a piece of the past. You might sip water from a clay cup, lukewarm and slightly metallic in taste, or, if you're lucky, a small bowl of thin, spiced broth that's more salt than substance. Modern coffee lovers might scoff at the idea of a bland cup of sour water, but here it's all part of the routine, fueling a day of work, rituals, and survival. Speaking of rituals, hygiene here is a matter of practicality and superstition. Forget your 10-step skincare routine. Here, survival is splashing some water on your face and hoping the smell doesn't scare the neighbors. You might carry a small pouch of herbs, mint, thyme, or sage that you rub onto your skin or burn as incense, believing it will purify the air around you. You might also have a small vial of vinegar, used as an astringent or deodorizer, spritzed onto your linen or skin when things get especially pungent. Some believe that carrying a handful of onions or garlic wards off disease, organic, if not entirely, fashionable medicine. Others swear that sniffing a sprig of basil soaked in vinegar keeps the bad spirits at bay, a kind of medieval air freshener that doubles as a spiritual shield. Inside your home, the atmosphere is a quiet symphony of textures and smells. The walls are rough and dark, coated with layers of soot from the fire that crackles in the hearth. The furniture, simple wooden stools, a carved chest, a clay oven, are all worn from years of use. The surfaces are uneven, coated in a thin film of smoke, with a faint sheen of oil from cooking or household chores. The scent of burning wood mingles with the faint aroma of damp linen and the earthy smell of clay. Clothes hang on ropes or drape over wooden pegs, their fibers stiff and scratchy, often damp from the morning's washing or the humidity. The air carries a faint, smoky sweetness from the herbs burned earlier, mingling with the scent of freshly baked bread or roasted vegetables. Your body reacts to this environment in its own way. The rough fabrics chafe against your skin, and the chill of the early morning air makes your muscles tense. You might find yourself scratching an itch or rubbing your arms to warm up, your skin prickling from the coarse materials and the cool draft seeping through cracks in the walls. If you're feeling particularly uncomfortable, you might wish for a soft, modern sweater or a plush blanket, but instead you're wrapped in layers of stiff linen or wool that feel more like armor than comfort. Comparing this to your current life, where you can change clothes at the click of a button or hop into a warm shower, makes you smile at the simplicity, yet resilience, of these ancient routines. As you prepare to step outside, you might take a moment to adjust your clothing, tighten your belt, or wipe away the sweat from your brow. The idea of a quick shower or a sleek moisturizer is almost laughable here. Your routine involves a splash of cold water, a pinch of herbs, and a prayer to stay healthy. You might tie a small amulet around your neck, perhaps a scarab or an eye of Horus, to ward off evil spirits or illness, believing that a little magic can go a long way in this world. Before leaving your home, you might burn a small piece of incense or recite a prayer, asking the gods for protection and good fortune. It's a daily ritual that feels both comforting and necessary, a reminder that despite the simplicity, life here is woven with layers of faith, hope, and superstition. Now, as you step out into the bustling street, the sounds, smells, and textures of this ancient world swirl around you, grounding you in a reality that is at once gritty and sacred. The routines of hygiene and daily living are not just chores, they are acts of devotion, survival, and tradition. And as you move forward, ready to face the day's tasks, remember, beneath the coarse fabrics and simple rituals lies a society rich in history, belief, and resilience, one that has endured for thousands of years. And yet, even here, in this land of pyramids and temples, the human experience remains remarkably familiar. The desire to start fresh every morning, to find comfort amid chaos, and to face whatever comes with a little faith, and perhaps a pinch of vinegar. You step out of your modest dwelling, the air immediately embracing you with a mixture of warmth and dust. The ground beneath your feet is uneven, a patchwork of cracked stones, loose dirt, and stubborn patches of mud, still damp from yesterday's rain. The faint whisper of a breeze carries a hint of smoke from nearby hearths, mingling with the faint aroma of dried herbs and livestock. As you move forward, the bustling street awakens around you, people already in motion, their voices rising in a chorus of calls, greetings, and the clatter of carts. Children's laughter echoes amid the hum of merchants bargaining, their voices sharp and lively, like a marketplace louder than a festival, yet with more donkeys than drums. You're already dressed for your duties, a simple linen tunic, reinforced with a leather apron, and a small pouch tied to your belt, filled with dried herbs, amulets, and perhaps a small vial of medicinal oil. The mask of woven reeds and aromatic herbs rests comfortably on your face, its beak-like shape giving you an air of authority or perhaps suspicion. The weight of it is surprisingly comforting. Some say it keeps evil spirits at bay, others believe it's just good sense. Your hands are steady as you adjust the straps, ready to face the day's work. Your role in the community is clear. You are the healer, the one expected to ease suffering, to diagnose the unseen enemies that threaten health, and to offer remedies that might just save lives. Children stare at you, half curious, half terrified, your mask giving you an air of mystery, like a creature from legend. Elderly villagers nod politely, their expressions a mixture of respect and wariness, as if you might wield the power of the gods with a touch or a whisper. Merchants eye you suspiciously, clutching their goods a little tighter, while soldiers stand at a distance, their hands resting on their weapons, watching for any sign of trouble. You walk through the marketplace, a place of vibrant colors and cacophony, vendors shouting about fresh bread, spices, and textiles, their voices blending into a constant background hum. The scent of baked bread and roasting meat drifts through the air, competing with the sharper aroma of sweat, leather, and the pungent fumes of incense burned in small clay censers. You navigate past carts piled high with fruits, vegetables, and jars of honey, your presence marking you as a figure of authority, perhaps even a little fear. Your tasks are familiar, yet each carries its own weight, each a small act of hope or despair. You visit the homes of the sick, stepping carefully over uneven thresholds, carrying a small bag of herbs and a vial of oil. Inside, you examine the patients, feeling their pulse, inspecting their skin for signs of illness, listening to their coughs that sound like broken bellows. The smell of incense and vinegar fills the air as you prepare your remedies. Some believed that carrying a cane was not just support, but a tool for poking at stubborn patients from a safe distance. Others thought that smoking herbs inside the reed mask would keep the disease away, like medieval aromatherapy. You apply poultices, whisper prayers, and record symptoms on a clay tablet, your fingers feeling the roughness of the tablet's surface, the faint scent of burnt papyrus lingering nearby. You burn old clothes or linens that might harbor infection, their charred smell mixing with the smoke from your incense. The act of healing here is as much a ritual of faith as it is a science, each herb chosen with care, each prayer whispered with hope. Your interactions with others are as layered as the city itself. Nobles and priests regard you with a mixture of reverence and skepticism. Some see you as a conduit of divine power, others as just another healer trying to make a living. Servants and laborers watch you with curiosity, perhaps wondering if you truly hold the cure or if your magic is just a lucky guess. Children mimic your cautious movements, clutching their amulets and imitating your gestures, while the soldiers stay alert, ready to respond to any unrest. When you speak, your voice carries authority, but beneath it hums a quiet humor. After all, your office politics might be annoying, but at least they don't involve actual swords. Amid this daily chaos, you are part of a larger rhythm, markets bustling with activity, processions honoring gods winding through the streets, and the steady march of villagers tending their crops or preparing for festivals. The community's faith in your work is palpable. Some believe that a simple amulet of carved stone can ward off illness, while others swear that reciting prayers to the gods can turn back the worst of plagues. Every ritual, every gesture is woven into the fabric of their shared belief, an invisible thread holding society together in times of health and sickness alike. Behind every busy street and every wary glance, there's a deeper fear, an understanding that life's fragile balance can be shattered in an instant. To truly grasp this world, you'd need to step into their superstitions and beliefs where gods and spirits rule over mortality as much as the herbs and remedies you carry. But for now, you move through this world, a figure of authority and mystery, performing your duties amid the vibrant, unpredictable chaos of your community. And as you do, you realize that your role isn't just about medicine, it's about holding hope in your hands. Hope that even in a land of pyramids and temples, the human spirit endures, resilient and unbroken. You feel it in the very air you breathe, that constant, almost inaudible hum of fear that seems to hang over everything like a heavy fog. It's in the way people glance nervously over their shoulders, whispering prayers under their breath as you pass, clutching their charms and amulets as if they could somehow ward off the unseen enemies lurking in the shadows. The streets are alive with a tense quiet, punctuated only by the distant tolling of church bells, their sound echoing through the city and marking moments of collective grief. Funerals with their mourners lining the procession routes, heads bowed beneath veils of black cloth, the heavy clang of the funeral chimes reverberating like a reminder that mortality is always just a breath away. You notice how the city's rhythm is dictated by these moments, people stopping in the marketplace, crossing themselves hurriedly before entering a temple, the flickering of hundreds of candles casting long, trembling shadows inside churches filled with incense and silent supplication. Today, the people's religiosity isn't just ritual, it's their armor against the chaos of life. Before any task, they murmur silent prayers, signing themselves with the cross, whispering blessings to saints, carved in stone, invoking divine protection with a trembling voice. In the bustling square, monks walk slowly, their robes brushing the stone pavement as they sing hymns that seem to drift like smoke, slow, deliberate, filled with a weight of hope and desperation. Their voices are joined by the crackling of incense sticks whose scent, an earthy mixture of myrrh and frankincense, clings to the air and seems to seep into your skin, a fragrant reminder of faith's power. Churches are crowded, each corner filled with flickering candles, flickering like tiny stars against the darkness of fear. The smell of burning wax mingles with the sharp aroma of herbs placed in small bowls, meant to ward off spirits or bad air, an ancient, almost comical ritual, like modern essential oils, but with a risk of setting your robes aflame or inhaling too much smoke. You might chuckle inwardly at the thought, but it's serious business here. The superstitions are as varied as the stars. Some believe that carrying a dead toad in your pocket could ward off the plague, an idea as bizarre as it sounds, yet deeply rooted in the desperate hope that even the ugliest creature might bring protection. Others think whipping themselves in the streets, blood running down their backs, will earn them divine mercy, an act that's more ritual than cure, a physical scar left as a sign of faith's sacrifice. Amulets carved with symbols of the gods hang around necks, their stones and charms believed to trap evil spirits or repel the miasma. This idea that disease is a foul, rotten air, polluting the very breath we take. People sprinkle herbs and powders onto their doorsteps, muttering incantations as they do, trying to cleanse the air of unseen toxins. It's almost humorous, like a medieval version of aromatherapy, except with a slightly higher chance of accidental poisoning or setting a neighbor's thatched roof ablaze. You see women pressing crosses into their children's foreheads, men lighting candles for divine intervention, all while eyes dart nervously around, scanning for signs of sickness or heretics. The collective fear binds the community in a strange, uneasy unity. Everyone is on high alert, fearing the invisible enemy of disease, sure, but also wary of witches, heretics, and anyone who doesn't follow the prescribed rituals. Accusations fly quickly. A cough might be enough to condemn a neighbor as a witch, leading to hurried lynchings or frantic public confessions. The community operates like a nervous organism, always tense, always watchful, as if the very stones of the city might whisper warnings or curses. In the midst of this, you, as a figure of authority, perhaps a priest, healer, or a scholar, find yourself caught between the sacred and the superstitious. Your role is complex, to soothe fears with prayers and charms or to diagnose the symptoms of the miasma, those foul airs believed to carry death on their breath. People look at you with a mixture of reverence and suspicion. Some see you as a vessel of divine power, others as a possible accomplice of evil, perhaps even both at once. They whisper behind your back, eyes darting with a mixture of hope and doubt. You catch glimpses of their thoughts in fleeting expressions, an old woman clutching her rosary tightly, a young man crossing himself hurriedly when you approach. The sick seek your aid, trembling as they press their hands to their chests or cough uncontrollably, blood sometimes streaking their lips. Their trust in you is as fragile as the fragile hope that the next prayer will be enough to turn away death. And yet, amid the fervor and the fears, some practices seem almost comical. Some believed that carrying a dead toad in your pocket could ward off the plague, a bizarre superstition, but one rooted in the same desperation that makes people hang amulets and recite prayers. Others thought that whipping oneself in the streets would earn divine mercy, a form of penance that's as much about community spectacle as spiritual cleansing. The air is thick with the scent of burning candles, incense, and the faint smell of burnt offerings mingling with the aroma of sweat and dirt. Every corner holds a new ritual, a new object of faith, be it a tiny carved figure, a sprig of herbs, or a prayer scrawled on a shard of pottery. Fear here is like the smoke from 100 chimneys. You breathe it in whether you want to or not. It blends into the daily life, shaping every decision, every glance, every whispered prayer. It unites the community in a shared dread, but also divides those who trust in divine mercy, those who rely on charms and amulets, and those who secretly doubt it all. People are always on edge, ready to accuse or to flee, their nerves frayed like the frayed edges of their garments. The city feels like a living organism, pulsating with anxiety, yet somehow still holding together, because beyond all the superstitions and fears, there remains a stubborn thread of hope. And as you walk through this world, your role is not just to heal or to judge, but to embody that fragile balance, an anchor amid the storm of spiritual fears. You might see the glint of a talisman tucked into a sleeve or catch a whispered prayer on the wind. Your presence alone can stir trust or suspicion, sometimes both at once. The community depends on your actions, yet they also watch you with suspicion, waiting for the moment you might falter or lend aid in the wrong way. Your duties are woven into their fears, every prayer, every blessing, every ritual, a thread in the intricate fabric of their beliefs. And so, as you reflect on this world of endless worry, where divine punishment and unseen enemies walk hand in hand, you realize that beneath the surface of ritual and fear lies a simple truth. They cling to their faith because in this fragile universe, it's the only thing that keeps the darkness at bay. But even in a world heavy with fear, people still reach for one another, holding on to hope, faith, and the faintest whisper of reassurance that perhaps, just perhaps, they are not alone in facing the shadows. It's in the way neighbors lean on one another, not just for bread or a shared torchlight, but for something more subtle. The comfort that only another heartbeat nearby can bring, the reassurance that in this fragile world, no one is truly alone. It's the small gestures, an arm around a trembling shoulder, a shared cup of beer during a festival, a whispered prayer passed from lips to ears, that stitch the fabric of community together, thread by fragile thread. In these moments, you realize that human connection is perhaps the most powerful thing of all, even amid sickness, suspicion, and social chaos. Step into a household, and you see life's intricate web of kinship, families sprawling across cramped rooms, generations piled one on top of another like a stack of worn scrolls. Children with dirt-smudged faces scamper between their parents, while the elderly sit quietly, their hands folded in prayer or resting on their knees. Forget Netflix family drama. Here, your cousin might literally sleep on the floor 2 feet away from you every single night, sharing a blanket, sharing stories, sharing the weight of survival. The family is both your fortress and your prison, a place of love, yes, but also a series of obligations you can't escape. You might have to fetch water at dawn for the grandmother's herbal remedies, or listen patiently as your uncle bores everyone with tales of battles long past, all while knowing that tomorrow's meal depends on your labor. Yet in this cramped, bustling space, there's warmth, smiles exchanged over bread, the gentle touch of hands passing a bowl, the faint scent of cooked onions and bread filling the air like a promise of sustenance. And then there are the small, vital acts of friendship that keep the community alive, neighbors helping each other with chores, trading surplus food, whispering advice in the shadows of evening. You see a woman wrapping a piece of bread in a rag, offering it to her neighbor's hungry child, while a man shares a scrap of dried meat in exchange for a favor. The trust is fragile, of course. A gossip whispered too loudly can turn an ally into an enemy overnight. But in these moments, the bonds feel as sturdy as the stone walls that surround the city. It's a delicate dance, one of mutual reliance, woven through shared hardships and fleeting moments of joy. Sometimes a simple gesture like lending a bowl of lentils can feel as monumental as a royal decree. And love, oh, love still finds its way in the strangest places. Perhaps it's a glance across a smoky tavern where a young man offers a shy smile to a maiden with eyes like midnight. Or the secret meetings behind the temple's shadowed columns where lovers exchange promises beneath flickering lamps, their hearts pounding louder than the drums at the festival. Imagine the thrill of a furtive touch, the stolen moments that make the danger of discovery seem almost worth it.
Tinder swipes? Here, it's a glance across a crowded square, maybe a dance if the fiddler's instrument doesn't break mid-song, and a whispered vow that if the gods are kind, this love might survive the next plague or famine. These relationships, tender and fleeting, remind you that even in a brutal world, human hearts still beat with hope and longing. Within this intricate social web, hierarchy shapes every connection.
The noble lord's grand feast is a world apart, rich foods, fine linens, and a sense of authority that echoes through the halls. Yet, even within these walls, the social order is clear. The noble's word is law, and the humble servant's job is to serve with a bow and a smile, knowing that any misstep could mean a slap or worse. The clergymen, revered but distant, hold a different kind of power, respected for their wisdom, feared for their mysterious rituals. You, as a figure perhaps seen as both healer and outsider, maybe a plague doctor or a wise man, stand at a strange crossroads, respected by some, mistrusted by others, never fully trusted, but always necessary. You can sense the unspoken tension, the way villagers glance at you with a mix of hope and suspicion, as if you might be an agent of salvation or the bearer of doom. Sometimes a stern nod from a noble can mean protection. Other times a whispered curse from a commoner can make your days difficult. The social fabric is woven with both loyalty and suspicion, each thread as vital as it is fragile. And then there are the grand gatherings, festivals, processions, markets, where the senses come alive. The smell of fresh bread and roasted meat fills the air, mingling with the scent of incense and the sweat of performers. You see men and women in vibrant robes, children's laughter ringing out as they chase each other through the crowds, and musicians playing lively tunes that lift spirits even as the shadow of disease looms nearby. The air hums with the energy of collective celebration, people dancing, offering prayers, sharing food, and exchanging stories. You might be part of a crowd, your hand clasped with a neighbor's, feeling the rough texture of woven fabrics, the cold of a stone altar, the warmth of shared bread. These moments are vital. They remind everyone that life, despite its dangers, is meant to be experienced together. The community's rituals, whether a ritual cleansing, a marriage, or a funeral, serve as anchors, reinforcing bonds amid chaos. And yet, beneath the surface, rivalries simmer, disputes over land, accusations of witchcraft, jealousies that can explode in a heartbeat. The social fabric is stitched with both love and tension, woven from shared joy and fear. You might smile at the thought, your awkward family gathering. Try a medieval wedding feast where half the guests are drunk by noon, singing loudly and spilling wine, and the other half are quietly arguing over goats. or who will inherit the family herd. Or consider the neighbors. At least they don't accuse you of witchcraft just because your goat bleats a little too loudly when your Wi-Fi cuts out. Here, human connections are raw and real, sometimes tender, sometimes fraught with suspicion, but always essential. Every handshake, every whispered secret, every rivalry is part of this complex mosaic of social life where survival often depends more on who you know than what you own.
And oh, the strange little quirks of social life. In some villages, it was believed that if you sneezed during a wedding, it was a good omen, unless it wasn't, depending on which grandmother you asked. Public punishments, like whipping or shaming, were community events, half justice, half twisted entertainment, like the medieval version of reality TV. People gathered to watch, sometimes with popcorn-like snacks made from roasted grains, as the village's sins were publicly aired and judged.
These moments of shared spectacle kept everyone on edge, reminding you that even in a world of bonds and trust, the line between order and chaos was razor thin. If you want to understand these relationships, you need to sit at their table, literally, because nothing binds a community quite like food and drink. The smell of freshly baked bread, the aroma of spiced stews, the clink of goblets filled with wine or fermented fruit. All these simple pleasures create a web of connection. Sharing a meal is an act of trust, an exchange of warmth, a promise that, despite everything, life continues. The laughter around the feast table, the stories told over cups of honeyed wine, the gentle touch of a hand on a shoulder. These are what hold them together, even when fears of plague or famine threaten to tear them apart. You can see it in the way families gather for celebrations, in the way neighbors share bread during hard times, in the way lovers exchange sweet words beneath the glow of hanging lamps. These bonds, fragile yet resilient, are the true heartbeat of their society. And as you observe all this, the friendships forged in hardship, the family ties that both comfort and confine, the rivalries that threaten to unravel the fabric, your understanding deepens. Even in a brutal world, the human spirit finds ways to connect, to love, to hope. Because in the end, no matter how dark the shadows, life's greatest strength is the ties that bind us, those quiet, unbreakable threads woven through shared experiences, whispered secrets, and the simple act of standing side by side, facing an uncertain tomorrow. It's a simple wooden board, scarred and worn from countless meals shared under the same roof. A rough-hewn trenches of bread sit at the edges, their crusts golden and crackling softly as they cool. The faint aroma of a slow-simmered pottage drifts upward, earthy, comforting, a blend of boiled grains, tender vegetables, and a touch of salt-cured meat. Nearby, a small bowl of cheese, its surface mottled and crumbly, waits alongside a cluster of eggs, both humble staples and vital sustenance. The flickering flames cast shifting shadows, illuminating the rough texture of the bread's crust, the oily sheen of a small jug of vinegar, and the faint vapor rising from a steaming cauldron. The air is thick with scents. Smoke from the hearth mingles with the sharp tang of herbs crushed under your fingers, sage, rosemary, a hint of thyme. It's a sensory symphony that awakens your appetite, a quiet reminder of the simple, honest life that sustains you day after day. Your utensils are few, perhaps a carved wooden spoon, a dull knife, and a small, battered goblet. There are no delicate silverware or porcelain plates here. Instead, rough clay bowls and trenchers, cracked yet functional, serve as your vessels. You wash your hands at a basin of cool water, the surface rough beneath your fingertips, the water carrying a faint, earthy taste from the well. The cloth you use to wipe your fingers is coarse, linen perhaps, or a scrap of woven fabric. more about necessity than luxury. The absence of excess is a comfort in itself. There are no silver goblets or silk napkins, only the essentials, each piece carrying the weight of daily life. Today's menu mirrors the humblest of routines, nothing fancy, yet enough to stave off hunger. A thick porridge of barley or millet seasoned with herbs fills your bowl, its texture hearty and slightly gritty, like a childhood's favorite blanket. A piece of coarse bread, dense and chewy, is torn apart with rough hands, its flavor simple but satisfying. Sometimes a slice of salted fish or a few boiled eggs appear, luxuries reserved for the better days or special guests. Fresh vegetables are rare, but onions and garlic, their pungent aroma filling the air, remind you that flavor isn't just a matter of spice but of necessity. A small clay cup of ale, cloudy and slightly bitter, accompanies the meal, its yeasty scent a familiar comfort, even if the taste is modest. Water, often tinged with a hint of soil from the well, is your everyday drink, refreshing enough, but a reminder that purity is a luxury seldom attained. The scene shifts between the everyday and the extraordinary. Those moments when a noble family gathers in their grand hall, their table laden with roasted meats, sweet cakes infused with honey, and exotic spices, saffron, cinnamon, rare as the dawn. Their fine linens and silver goblets glint in the torchlight, and their laughter echoes softly as they carve and share. Here, the food is a symbol of status, an extension of power, wealth, and taste, a stark contrast to your simple fare. The noble's table is a stage for display, each morsel a silent proclamation, "We have more than enough." The common's table, by contrast, is a mosaic of necessity, bread that's been broken and rewarmed, vegetables boiled until soft, and the ever-present reminder that scarcity is close enough to touch. Before every meal there is a ritual, some quiet prayer, a blessing whispered under your breath, a simple gesture of gratitude to the gods or spirits who provide. The washing of hands is a sacred act, a moment to cleanse not just dirt, but the worries of the day. In some households, a small sacrifice is made, perhaps a handful of herbs tossed into the fire, or a prayer to ensure the meal's blessing. The order of serving reflects social standing, those of higher rank eating first, the lesser folk waiting patiently, their bowls filled last. It's a delicate dance of etiquette, each gesture a mark of respect or deference, each bite a reminder of the hierarchies that define this world. Meal times are not just about sustenance, they are moments of connection, of shared experience. The clatter of wooden bowls, the scrape of rough knives against bread, and the murmur of voices create a backdrop that's as familiar as a lullaby. You sense the subtle tension, rivalries over land or honor, whispers of gossip over a neighbor's misfortune, the silent judgments cast at the table. Sometimes a dish is shared in secret, an extra piece of meat, a handful of dried fruit, small acts of rebellion or kindness depending on the moment. In the marketplace, the scents of fresh bread baking in communal ovens mingle with the sharp smell of malting barley and the bitter aroma of fermented drinks. Vendors shout their prices, 2 coins for a loaf, fresh from the oven, their voices rising above the hum of life. The baker's face is streaked with flour, the fire crackles loudly as a loaf is pulled from the oven, and the smell of toasted crusts drifts into the street like a promise. You might cross a crowded square, your basket heavy with herbs, citrus, and bottles of medicinal theriac, and complex brew believed to ward off poison and disease. The hustle is relentless, the smells layered, faintly sour, spicy, and sweet all at once, each stall a tiny universe of necessity and desire. The hunger that gnaws at you is a quiet, persistent companion, an almost poetic force that sharpens your senses and heightens every taste and aroma. It's the kind of hunger that turns a simple crust of bread into a treasure, that makes the aroma of stewed vegetables seem like a feast. Waste is rare, leftovers are carefully wrapped and saved for later, the scraps fed to the animals or turned into compost, an acknowledgement that scarcity is a constant companion and nothing is to be taken for granted. Yet even amid the austerity there's beauty, an elegance in how each meal is a small act of defiance against the chaos, a moment of calm in an uncertain world. The table, whether humble or grand, is a stage where life's simplest pleasures unfold, sharing, savoring, and holding on to the fleeting sense that despite everything, nourishment remains a sacred act. And of course, nothing quite prepares you for what comes after. The bustling streets that beckon with music, dance, and the promise of forgetfulness. The last crumbs are wiped away, the last sip of wine taken, and the city's shadows lengthen. The night calls, and with it, the promise that beneath the weight of hardship, life still dances, laughter echoing through alleyways, lanterns flickering against the dark, and the music of flutes and drums rising like a toast to resilience. Because after all, the table might be the heart of the day, but the night is where the soul is truly set free. The streets are alive with a quiet hum. Lanterns flicker along narrow alleyways, casting long, wavering shadows that stretch like dark fingers reaching into the night. The air holds a mixture of warm beer, slightly sour, with hints of dampness from the recent rain, or perhaps the mossy scent of the cobblestones. The smell of worn wood and sweat from the day's labor mingles with the faint aroma of damp hay and burnt wax from the candles that flicker in the windows. As you walk, the faint laughter and murmur of voices drift upward, delicate as a thread woven into the fabric of the evening, promising a night of simple pleasures and shared stories. Soon you arrive at the tavern, a sturdy structure with a low, dark wooden facade. Inside, the air is thick with dust and warmth, a stark contrast to the chill outside. The rough benches are crowded with locals, their faces illuminated by the amber glow of the fire in the hearth. The flames crackle softly, sending sparks spiraling upward like tiny stars caught in a web of smoke. Wooden tables are scattered unevenly, some with chips and gouges, bearing witness to years of rowdy games and hearty laughter. The smell of stale ale and roasted grains fills your nostrils, mingling with the faint scent of damp wool and the smoky aftertaste of pipeweed. Here, the noise is a comforting chaos, loud voices rising and falling, the clink of tankards and the scratch of dice tumbling across the rough surface of a table. You notice a group engrossed in a game of dice, an ancient ritual of chance, where the same small cube tumbles like a promise of luck, and falls, as always, like an unpaid debt. The dice bounce and roll, their sound a dull thud, a reminder that fate is as unpredictable as the weather, sometimes a blessing, sometimes a burden. Across the room, a fiddler strums a raw, unpolished tune on a Rebecca, the notes uneven but heartfelt. Nearby, a lute player joins in, their fingers fumbling over the strings, creating a melody that's a little out of tune, but full of warmth. The rhythm is simple, an easy, pulsing beat that anyone can follow, like the steady march of footsteps in a procession. You find yourself tapping your foot, caught between the desire to join and the gentle reminder that this is a moment of respite. The dance begins, an informal circle, bodies swaying to the music, the soles of worn leather boots marking time against the wooden floor. Beads of sweat form on foreheads, but the smiles are genuine, their warmth fighting off the cool night air outside. The dance is modest, no grand display, just simple steps, a mirror of community and shared joy. You join in, the rhythm guiding your movements, your hands clasping others, the laughter spilling over like spilled wine. From the corner, a small stage has been set up, an impromptu platform of rough planks draped with faded cloth. A troupe of local players performs a morality play, their costumes a patchwork of fabric and painted masks. The story unfolds, an allegory of virtue and vice, morality and temptation, told with exaggerated gestures, loud voices and hearty laughter. The audience watches attentively, some chuckling at the clumsy costumes, others silent in reverence. The performers' faces shine with effort and pride, their words echoing through the open air, a reminder that storytelling is as vital as breath itself. Outside, the night air is alive with the glow of bonfires and the scent of herbs burning, sage, thyme, and a hint of rosemary, used in rituals to chase away spirits or bring good fortune. A procession winds through the square, people carrying candles and singing hymns, their voices rising in a chorus that seems to lift the very sky. The flickering flames cast dancing shadows on faces painted with ash and soot, while the smell of beeswax and burning herbs mingles with the faint, sweet aroma of dried fruits and honeyed bread offered as part of the festivities. The procession moves slowly, reverent yet unhurried, as if honoring something greater than themselves, perhaps the harvest, a saint's feast, or the changing seasons. Yet amid this warmth and merriment, a darker presence lingers. A group of flagellants, their faces hidden beneath rough cloth masks, march solemnly through the crowd. Their rhythmic beating of whips against their backs echoes in the silence that sometimes falls over the crowd, a stark reminder of the fears that grip the community. They chant psalms and prayers, their voices a haunting counterpoint to the laughter and music. Some watch in curiosity, others with a mixture of reverence and unease. Their procession is a testament to the way superstition and faith intertwine, an act of penance, a plea for mercy in times of plague or misfortune. You notice a few gathered at the edges, eyes fixed on the spectacle, perhaps seeking guidance or reassurance. If you are the doctor of the town, a figure of respect and quiet authority, you feel the weight of their gazes. Even amid the revelry, your presence commands a mixture of awe and caution. Someone approaches, a trembling hand clutching a small vial of herbs or a talisman, asking for a quick word, a bit of advice to ward off the worst. You lean closer, touching the rough edge of the nearby wall or the worn beam of a post, and with a calm voice offer a brief blessing or reassurance, an act of trust that even in celebration, the community's fears are never far behind. Your role here is woven into the fabric of their lives, a silent guardian whose knowledge offers both comfort and dread. As the night deepens, the melodies shift, lutes and flutes fade into the background, replaced by the distant toll of a bell. The sound is slow and somber, a gentle reminder that all these moments of joy are fleeting, like the flicker of a candle about to burn out. Between the laughter and the prayers, you sense the delicate balance, life's rhythm of beginnings and endings, of hope and inevitable loss. The city is alive in a way that's both tender and fragile, each joy a fragile thread woven into a tapestry of shadows. When the last song fades and the bell responds, a deep, resonant toll, your mind drifts to the cycle that underpins everything. The same bell that marks celebration also tolls for farewell, for the silent departure of those who have gone before. The revelry itself is a fleeting rebellion against the darkness, a testament to the human spirit's resilience. You understand with quiet certainty that beneath the laughter, beneath the music, the city remembers. Everything begins and everything ends. The shadows lengthen, and the night whispers a promise, one that you carry within, as sure as the beat of the drums and the flicker of the lanterns. The air is tinged with the faint aroma of dried herbs and beeswax, mingling with the subtle scent of wet earth from the village's fields. As you settle into your bed, the night's calm begins to seep into your bones like the slow release of a breath long held. The rhythm of life, with its beginnings and endings, whispers gently in the background, an eternal cycle that hums beneath the quiet hum of your thoughts. Remember the newborn's first cry, a tiny, fragile sound like a tiny bell announcing a new chapter. The midwife's hands, rough but careful, wrap the child in a clean cloth, whispering blessings that blend with the faint murmur of prayers. The child's face, pink and squirming, bears the promise of life, innocence and hope compressed into a single tiny being. It's a moment suspended in time, as delicate as the first light of dawn, brief yet eternal in its significance. Then think of the vows exchanged beneath the arch of the church, fingers entwined, a ribbon tied in a simple knot, a blessing whispered over bread and salt. The community bears witness, an assembly of familiar faces, their voices lifting in a song that echoes softly in the air. The promise of union, sealed with a handshake and a prayer, is a thread woven into the fabric of shared existence, each touch a reminder that love, like life, is both fragile and resilient. The passing of generations is marked by the transfer of objects, an old carved bench worn smooth by years of sitting, a grandmother's ring heavy with stories, a sturdy chest filled with faded garments and faded hopes. These possessions are more than things. They are vessels of wisdom, inherited lessons, silent witnesses to the endless march of time. On such a bench, you might have heard stories, tales of harvests won and lost, of children growing into adults, of love and loss shaping the very ground you walk on. When sickness comes, when the shadow of the plague darkens the village, rituals are hurried, prayers whispered over a simple bed. The unction is applied with trembling hands. The prayers murmur low as the sick face their final hours. No time for elaborate rites, only a quiet acknowledgement of the inevitable. The silence hangs heavy, as if the very air waits in reverence. An unspoken understanding that some journeys must be completed in quiet, in the presence of those who care. As healer or witness, you stand in a humble role, offering comfort, knowing that some things are beyond mortal control, even when your heart aches with helplessness. The funeral procession begins, an unadorned march through the village where the grave awaits, a shallow hole filled with earth, ready to swallow the body of one more soul. A single bell tolls slowly, each strike a reminder of the silent passage from life to memory. The casket is lowered, the dirt falling softly onto the wood, a final act of release. In times of crisis, the community gathers in quiet, collective remembrance, names spoken softly over freshly turned soil or inscribed on simple wooden tablets. The dead are honored, their memory carried in the prayers whispered at mealtime and in the gathered murmurs at dusk. Look around. Stained glass windows cast colored patterns on the stone floors, scenes of morality and humility painted in vibrant, if faded, frescoes. Skulls and dancing skeletons remind all of the humility of mortal life, an artful whisper that life's fleeting nature is the greatest truth. The words from Ecclesiastes echo softly in your mind. There is a time to be born and a time to die. It's a gentle reminder that every beginning is shadowed by an end, and every farewell is a quiet seed for future stories. As you breathe out, the room becomes a sanctuary, a place of quiet gratitude for each moment that has passed. Every loaf shared, every song sung beneath the stars, every tear and smile is a testament to life's sacred, fleeting beauty. Your hand closes around the simple cup of tea, bitter, warm, grounding. The day's worries and fears dissolve into the shadows, replaced by the gentle acceptance that life's cycle is both a gift and a grace. Now, as the candle's flame flickers lower, casting a final, waning glow, you feel the weight of all that has been: birth, love, loss, and what will come after. The gentle glow dims slowly, like a lantern left behind at the edge of darkness. The quiet settles, a soft lullaby for the soul. Between the silent beats of breath, you hear the faint, distant toll of the village bell, a sound that echoes in your heart. It reminds you that everything begins anew, and everything must eventually find its rest. Close your eyes now. The world continues outside, breathing as it always has, alive, transient, sacred. The cycle turns quietly as it always does. And in this moment, you are part of that eternal rhythm, a gentle pulse that sustains all life, from the first cry to the last whisper. Sleep now, with the knowledge that the light remains, even as the candle's flame slowly goes out. The universe's steady, tender heartbeat carries you into rest.